I'll do whatever I have to do in the moment, whatever it is. I'm not afraid to do what I have to do in the moment. Sometimes it ain't what you think I should do, but more often than not, I do the right thing. Early childhood memories include my fondness for Ardelia Smith, who was my babysitter when I was 3 years old. And I can remember how excited I used to be to go over her house because she was a portly woman, and she'd sit me on her knee and she'd show me flashcards, phonics. And she taught me how to read when I was 3. And I looked forward to every time going over to her house to show her my progress, because by the time I got into kindergarten, I was already reading at a 5th grade level. When you learn to read early, you become, in some cases, a voracious reader. I couldn't get enough, and I read whole series of, book collections and all kinds, antique books and sports books and you name it. But early childhood, I was a little rascal. And I come from a nuclear family, a very small, tight family that resulted from the deep racism in America and the discrimination in California. My father was a black man born in Mississippi who, at 13 years old, had a fight with a white Western Union mail carrier, and they were going to lynch him that night because he broke 3 of the mail carrier's ribs, and the penalty for that was going to be string him up. So he got, his parents set him on a train bound for Los Angeles at midnight that night. Ironically, when he got here, thinking that he was coming to a better place, the first thing he saw was the coloreds only over the water fountain at Union Station. He had no tolerance for white folks' subjectivity. He did not bow and scrape. He didn't laugh when it wasn't funny. And if someone physically offended him or assaulted him, they found themselves in a fight with a bear. And he used to say, if you ever see me in a battle with a bear, help the goddamn bear. My mother was a white woman from San Francisco. Her mother was Irish Catholic. Her father was the son of Russian Orthodox Jews. And so she became Protestant. And my father, who had a Catholic upbringing, coming together in LA in a chance meeting, and the rest kind of became history. My father had been married once before he met my mother, and he was around 22 years old and had 2 boys, Teddy and Tamlin, and his first wife, her name I believe was Helen, she contracted tuberculosis and passed away from it. And people that lived in Watts around that time talked about how despondent Ted was, and that he wasn't taking care of himself, his kids. He was just walking around kind of like a zombie. He was, for some reason, going to the bank over on Broadway and Manchester, and he saw my soon-to-be mother. They struck up a conversation. She was curious about these little boys with him, and that they didn't look like they were being very well cared for. And they became friends. And then they married in 1947, I believe it was. But they couldn't marry in Los Angeles because it was illegal. They went to Mexico. When she married my father, first of all, she had to cut ties with her sisters and her mother, who she loved dearly. She wasn't so sad about not being around her father because he beat her. She never tried like a lot of white folks I've seen, try to act black. They try to assimilate, and she never tried to do that. She always was who she was. She was already involved in community action and civil rights issues and stuff well before she met my father, from what I understand. After meeting Ted, they moved into Palm Lane Housing Project, which was the poorest of the 5 housing projects in Watts. So there were now 2 boys. My sister Terry, who was 5 years older than me, had been born, and I was born. I was born while they were living at Palm Lane. What I remember is how affected she was by the Holocaust, and how she told me when I was 5, 6 years old about how the soldiers were throwing the babies into the air and using them for target practice. She told me about the mountains of baby shoes next to the ovens, and she told me about how indifferent America was to the plight of the German Jewish until it got to the point where America's interests were somehow being threatened. But she was very, just very, very intelligent. Let me talk about my siblings a little bit and share that my 2 oldest brothers, Teddy and Tamlin, they got a lot from my father. His strength, his determination, his undying, persistent effort. There was nothing that the 3 of them couldn't do. My older sister, Terry, passed away a few months ago. She was a real firecracker too, and she ran the Watts Labor Community Action Committee for a period of time before she got ill. Lisa is 72 years old, and she walks 7 or 8 miles a day. She just retired for the 2nd time from the County of Los Angeles Department of Children's Services. And by the way, before I go any further, I need to acknowledge my younger brother, who took his own life in 2005. He was a brilliant boy that got addicted to an early age and couldn't shake it. All of us have been inextricably linked to the community of Watts and the Watts Labor Community Action Committee, also known as WLCAC, for most of our lives. Lisa is the only one that moved out of Watts when she became of adult age. Everybody else has chosen to follow the corporate motto of don't move, improve. At the age of 18 to 25, I just graduated from Hamilton High School in Culver City and was part of a band making music. Eventually, I think I was 18 when I joined, it might have been 18 when I joined the Silvers, and the Silvers were touring the country, and I played piano for the group, and eventually married one of the members. Charmaine was my first wife. I married at 22. The music was fun and traveling was fun, but in those days I was going to need more because she was pregnant when we got married, and right away had 2 more. And so I started building my landscape business. It didn't last long. We were divorced in 5 years. I don't know if I'm a hopeless romantic or just hopeless, but I got married again. We had twins. We had twin babies, and she had 1 child from a previous relationship, and I had the 3 from mine. So when we got together, we had 4 kids already, a blended family, and then had the twins. She was just 22 years old, raising 6 kids. I was 30 years old, working hard every day, and it got to the point where we were, at least from my perspective, we were prosperous. Things between Janine and I went on divergent paths some years back. My oldest child, Tim Watkins Jr., he's raising 2 boys, and he's a stay-at-home father. He was a prolific writer, songwriter. My oldest daughter, Cameo, was a daddy's girl, is a daddy's girl. She is facing her own series of struggles, and as a result of that, I'm raising her son. I've had him since he was a day old. My second daughter, Tina, is a songstress. She has the sweetest voice, and she sings, like nobody's business, but she's also the best grant writer that we've ever had at WLCAC, and she oversees the grant writing operation, and year over year, they've been increasing by millions of dollars. My youngest son was Janine's son from a previous relationship, and he's a great kid, never once in trouble. His daughter, Judea, she's just the best in the world, basketball player, literally. ESPN, all of the big sports media outlets say that she's the best 16-year-old basketball player in the world. My 2 younger daughters, the twins, TNT, literally. They're both actually trying to help me, helping reconfigure our financial services division and reconfigure our real estate services division. I'm the president and chief executive officer of the Watts Labor Community Action Committee and its 13 subsidiaries, LLCs, and LPs. The mission of WLCAC is to improve the quality of life for the residents of Watts and nearby communities, and that hasn't changed in 57 years. My father, along with a small group of union leaders, got together and started the Watts Labor Community Action Committee as an experiment to see what could be done to alleviate mounting pressures with help from the union. So 17 unions came together to help form the Watts Labor Community Action Committee. And it carries along with it a history of having started the first summer youth work programs, the first senior citizens formally organized programs. I think we started Meals on Wheels. WLCAC has been at the forefront of addressing environmental issues and so on and so forth since its inception. Art and cultural enrichment as part of the healing tools that we use to work with human beings that need jobs, that need housing, need food, and so on. But all of those things are continuing today. We've got 9 operating divisions. Each of them is in a silo. You've got homeless services, employment services, youth services, family services, senior services, and climate services, enrichment services, administrative services, and real estate services. I run an organization that treats the symptoms, I believe, of poor public policy, and that we've had the snow, thrown in our faces for so many decades by the officials in high places that call it poverty. the institutions, the educational institutions, the academicians, all of the people that call it poverty are wrong. It's poor public policy. And poverty is a symptom of those choices that are made by legislators and the people that would say, let's have a zero tolerance policy. And as they have that policy, it hurts more people than it helps. So my challenge is how to get beyond treating the symptoms and getting to the underside of the cause.